Brothers WISP. The Brothers WISP, Brothers WISP. The Brothers WISP. The Brothers.
You're now listening to Greg, it's the Brothers WISP. Let's take a ride through space on this mothership. Wireless networking, we talk about equipment and methodology. So sit back and start learning. Lighten up the tower so people can start searching. Shooting up the web in neighborhoods, net surfing. We got horrible jokes, we're loud and annoying, but we're informative facts, we're not disappointing. Just give us a listen, cause fun is the mission. I'm telling you, you don't know what you are missing. Ideas and some good comedy given. If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.
Hey everybody, this is Tommy with the Brothers WISP. I'm running this show solo for the first time, so if there's anything broken, you can blame me and not Greg. With me today, I have John over here. Let's see here. I think it should be this. Sorry, I have to alt tab over. He's going to be this direction on me, because I messed up the the recording stuff. So John is over in the promised land, as I was told by a friend. I prefer to call it hell in June, July, and August, and September, because it's Phoenix. Yeah. So
more accurate.
Yeah. I drove through Phoenix once in a 82 Chevy 1-ton pickup that had no working air conditioning, and we were actually running the heater because it was overheating. So that was a miserable experience.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Yeah.
One of my side businesses, getting funds together to build a network, since all of us are like self-funded, and do extra work to purchase extra work for ourselves, which doesn't make too much sense. But I used to have a BMW and Mercedes dealership in LA, a block down from Hollywood Boulevard. And I would buy the vehicles here, restore them, get them working again and everything, and then drive them to Mexicali, get them painted and everything, and then sell them in LA. So a lot of the times the ACs didn't work. So yeah, 120 degree weather. I don't care what these Arizonians say. It's a dry heat. Well, so is an oven, but
yeah, I can verify it is like an oven. Like you stick your hand out and the wind's going by at like 45 miles an hour, because that's how fast you can go on the highway. And it's like, and then you just like bring your hand in and the heater is blowing on your face, and that feels like an oven too, constantly. It's awful.
There's been many times where like I've turned the heat on and it was cooler than putting down the window. And it's like, how does that work? But yeah, I'm mostly focused on diesels, because growing up on a farm working on tractors, and I focused on like 60s to late 80s models. Anything newer than that was the Chrysler Daimler Benz purchase thing. And then I'm all like, Chevys don't sell. So the work trucks do, but I was focusing on like vintage older models. The funny thing is, they're like in the WISP and internet service industry, basically. It's all similar. We're always fighting like with customer. We help out customers, and then like months later when something goes wrong, they're like, oh my God, you're the worst company in the world. And I just remember the like selling antique cars to people, putting them in music videos and stuff. And I remember one guy coming up, he bought a Mercedes S600 presidential class. So that's the boat, long boat.
Oh, Mercedes, yeah.
With the chrome trims on the bottom and the mahogany dash and steering wheel and all that stuff.
Oh, that thing had everything. Oof.
It had, this was a 1981, and it had champagne chillers and the back seat. So I had a little clip where you put the champagne glass and it clipped around it and it refrigerated it.
That sounds like the best company in the world right there.
Yeah, that was the original Mercedes, not the Chrysler Daimler Benz thing. 1981, they had champagne chillers and the rear seats folded all the way flat.
Nice.
And they were power as well. And he gave me cash. It was like $48,000 for it. And he's just so like, oh, does it run or do I have to have it towed onto set? I'm like, what? I didn't even have to fix it. Like I could have just made it look good.
Hey.
And then I remember now we deal with people with the internet like, my Netflix is buffering. Well, you're in the opposite side of the house of the router.
Oh yeah, it's a classic. It's my favorite. It's one reason why for a while I was like, if this house is over this number of square feet, like I would just look it up in the county records for each of the install. Like if it looked big, you can look from Google. And if it's above this number of square feet, it's like, tell the installers, either we don't sell them a router or we only sell them a mesh router because it's not worth it to me to do the diagnostics on it. But I guess we ought to actually, fun fact, John here is a new Patreon along with Nathan. So want to give you a little shout out. He joined up right after Greg made the announcement that I was taking over, and he was like, he and I know each other from WISPA America, or no, WISPA Paloozas. Have you ever gone to WISPA America?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I've not met Nathan yet, or had him post in the Brothers WISP Slack. But if he does want to join up and help us out, and join in on the Slack group, he's more than welcome. Be really cool to meet Nathan. Otherwise, we thank him for his support. And you too can join in on the Slack group and support the Brothers WISP through our Patreon. The Brothers WISP, I think it's on the video link, and it'll be on the YouTube. Yeah, it'll be there. But also we do get some support from two of our sponsors. As Greg used to say, let's eat the vegetables before we get to the meat of the matter. First off, we have Sonar, a scalable, intuitive, and comprehensive ISP billing and operational support system. Learn more at Sonar.Software. So basically, they're running. I use Sonar at where I work now. It works. Does our ticketing, bunch of other stuff. So, there you go. They support us and help us out. So we really appreciate that. And then also we have Tower Coverage. Tower Coverage is your RF propagation system to empower your network. Real-time data metrics enable your coverage area, reaching your customer base, and more. The industry's best RF propagation mapping system allows website integration for customer sign-up and pre-qualification. Use this data to scientifically plan network expansion and help your WISP succeed. Get a free trial today at towercoverage.com. They also support us, and I have gotten to use Tower Coverage. It is I like it.
I mostly because I didn't trust sticking with the Ubiquiti link tool. Like, as soon as I started seeing the little advertisements for the ISP designer thing, I'm just like, okay, they're gonna nix this. Then we actually hired somebody in Turkey that does our coverage maps and all that stuff. And so we had him, I'm like, yeah, learn Tower Coverage. I've been paying for it for a couple of years and I logged in like 3 times. And so I'm like, you learn it. That's what I pay you for. And it's an awesome tool. It really, really is. And there's a learning curve to it. It's definitely, it's not something like if you just want to like, hey, does this link work? Bam, bam, bam. It's not that.
Yeah, what the
you
Ubiquiti
check
tool
that,
was really amazing at.
yeah, that's what the Ubiquiti tool is good for. And that's why people loved it. Not because it was actually accurate. It was just because like, hey, there's not a mountain in the way.
Yeah.
That's what it did. Had no idea if trees were there. I had buildings built that were in the way that the UISP tool had no idea about. Tower coverage, it finds it. If you're in a LiDAR zone, it's fairly accurate. There's been some places where it said like clutter data was going to block everything, and I go there and I could make it work. And then sometimes I go and it, yep, you're right, not shooting through this wall of trees.
Yeah.
But it's that or sea and heat. But honestly, I like tower coverage mostly because they're not also a manufacturer, to where you're not going to have to deal with like Cambium if they want to make the stuff more proprietary to their gear, which they could do. It's their product. They can do what they want with it.
It is.
Same thing with the Ubiquiti tool. Like they decided, you know what? We're nixing this one. We're going to the ISP design.
Yeah, and now it's I haven't played with it much, but I noticed right off the bat that it was more difficult to do something that was like not a standard Ubiquiti product.
Yeah.
It was like, so it's a bummer.
Yeah, there's so much stuff that it does not do well at all, but it favors their brand new products. Like if it's not their brand new product, if it's not Wave, if it's not LTU, it's probably going to be a pain to deal with. That's what I've seen.
Yeah. So fun fact, I did just notice this. Ubiquiti is just made a public announcement. Their UI innovations. They're on row 51. It's a link to they have a YouTube video where they talk about their Wave technology. It's an announcement that they released just yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, they talk about a bunch of different stuff, including their Wave AP. So I guess that's going public. We're going to be getting out of early access for that.
Maybe now be in stock.
Oh no, John, that would be let's not get too hasty here.
That's all I asked for. I'm like, I have a whole spreadsheet of Ubiquiti accounts to order from. So I'm like, I can buy the shit, just have it in stock. But yeah, no.
Yeah, would be nice. So looks like they were announcing as well. I haven't seen they have this Wave mesh, which seems to me like that's their kind of Terragraph-esque.
Yeah.
The idea is like it's supposed to both be a customer node and then also rebroadcast, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and none of it was in early access. So like they announced most of the stuff there. The only thing that was in early access and that has been tested has been the Wave AP. And everything else, it's like we're all here like, what is it? We've never tested it. So that just seems very suspicious. Because that's kind of what early access is for.
It's gonna come out and it's gonna be completely bug free. Come on, John, get with the program here.
They got a pancake AP. Like, use that AP. It has a 2 degree like vertical beam width.
I think it's 3 degrees is when I was looking at it.
Yeah.
And then what they were advertising for the mesh one is that it could be customer installed, which is going to be awesome. I have seen a few different Ubiquiti like ISP guys running Ubiquiti stuff. where they did have customer installs. They actually, there was one guy that pulled it off a little bit to the west of you, out on the western side of Arizona, but I'm trying to remember the name of his company. It was pretty. I got some internet, I think, through him for my grandparents. It was kind of a cool little deal. Like he just gave me one of the nano beams, 5 ACs, and said, install it. Here you go. Okay, cool. You do this for all your customers? Yep. Okay. Worked fine enough for grandma, so she could be on Facebook. So I was okay with that. But I couldn't have done that out in Colorado where I was. You can't trust the customer to align stuff at all well, and especially using just the alignment LEDs.
Oh yeah, I like what I do because we have installers that they're contractors for like Dish, DirecTV, Cox, CenturyLink, and things like that. That's so like, they're not regular contractors or employees. So what I do is I just have like a password that's standard on all of our CPEs. Then once it's installed, we go through and change it, the password for all the equipment. So that way they don't have to like aim by LEDs and crap. I'm like, no, use the app on your phone, use the aiming tool. Here it is.
As much as anyone wants to complain about Ubiquiti, and I love to complain about Ubiquiti.
Yes.
I used to kind of defend them a little bit. Now I'm completely done. But they have the best app for alignment and diagnostics and stuff, hands down. I can't argue that point at all. And the user interface really is good on the AC gear. Like everything that you really want is easily accessible settings wise. It's great. I love it. So I actually am really hopeful because a lot of the Terragraph gear just was too expensive for the company that I was working with to pick up and start rocking. And so this I actually am kind of hopeful that this, we don't get a beta test, but we have 3 different CPE options. One of which has an SFP, so Mike will be happy. And then there's 3 different access points as well. So we were talking about, there's the 360, so that acts as both a CPE and an access point. There's the 90-degree one, that's a CPE supposed to be like, and like I don't know, like if it's supposed to be the micropop one. Yeah. And then there's the 30-degree wide access point, which is the one that you were talking about with the 2-3 degree wide beam up and down vertically, and then only 30. And then I guess they announced a bracket for it, so you can put 3 of them together to get 90 degrees out of that.
That will definitely help.
Yeah.
Because that is kind of one of the issues. It's like if you want to do a 360 with the Wave AP, that's 12 radios. So
that's a lot of mounting.
Brackets, yeah, that's a lot of mounts. So like if they're going to make a mount where clamp 3 of these together, and now you can pull those up just 4 times, that helps. It's a lot less for the climbers and everything. So
the Wave AP is really small though. I did not feel bad about handling it, and it felt really good. And you're talking with the 3 of them together, they were saying 6.2 gigabits aggregate throughput and up to 45 clients. So is that the 15 client limit that's also on Mikrotik?
Yeah. So
that's the Qualcomm chip, I think.
No, it's the one that begins with a P. I forget the name of it.
Well, I did just run across this video from, here we go. teardown of Y gig. So this is something else that I noticed on the old YouTubes. Qualcomm, yeah. So it's the link just below that. The channel is called The Signal Path. It's a really cool breakdown of what the equipment involved is, the chips involved in the Mikrotik 60 gigahertz access point and client. The LHG
Qualcomm one.
60G.
And then Ubiquiti is a different one. But
Oh,
it's
okay.
Wave.
Okay, cool that they're using, okay, so there's a different product all entirely. That's gonna be interesting to see how, well, I mean, I guess, that from what I understand, the guys who've been using it have been pretty happy, like really happy, so
Yes.
far.
I have 40 or 50 the 60LR point-to-points
Mhm.
in our network, and some of them up to 5 miles. And they're solid. There's nothing to really complain about. Especially being in Arizona, we don't get that much rain.
Yeah.
That helps a lot. But even some of our, during monsoon season, we get up to like 3 miles or so and we don't really have any issues. I've done a lot of trailer parks and things like that I use the 60 gig to point around, and then I have the Mikrotik.
Oh, yeah. You got one hanging out?
Yeah.
Which
Because
one?
behind my monitor is all of
Your inventory?
inventory.
Yeah.
I might flip my MacBook around because I have a bunch of Juniper gear phones and all kinds of stuff. But these?
Oh yeah, those new ones. Yeah, the new Mikrotiks. How are you liking those?
These things are awesome. They've fixed most of everything that we were complaining about. You know, because with I have their older ones here too somewhere.
Oh yeah, they looked like the wireless access points. Yeah.
Little buck things. Those, they were good if you only had 2 or 3 being the max clients on. Once you got to 4, you started getting a lot of packet loss. And you're like, hey, all of my signals are like
jumping up and down. That was really well documented, a lot of the issues that guys were having.
Hey, I didn't have that too much. Like all of my signals, like I'm all in the neg 40s, neg 50s, everything's fine, but I'm getting all this packet loss. And then once you threw Wireshark on there for a while, you started seeing packet collisions because there was no TDMA, there's no nothing. So
it was just raw Ethernet that they were pushing.
Like some of the network guys, if they're old enough to remember, used to have like a $200 hub and a $5,000 switch, but they're both 8 ports. And you're like, what's the difference? Why is this so much more expensive? And then you started plugging all the stuff into it and you daisy chained a few of them and you're like, wow, all this packet loss, and it's packets literally in the same time slot, just and thing with the Mikrotiks. Now these fixed that.
So it's real TDMA.
I don't smash it, but
yeah. Well, I would hope they'd be able to handle a little bit of outdoors.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've had my Mikrotik 60 gigahertz stuff get hammered by hail. So they're tough. The mesh back ones were a little bit. I've had to replace one of those.
I had one fold over on my roof.
Okay.
in a monsoon were just literally like, like an umbrella that blew the wrong way. Just
Oh yeah, nice, real
and
sweet.
I'm like, it was still working though.
So so did they implement a TDMA protocol in these new ones?
Uh,
I don't remember seeing that in any of the release notes.
I think that's part of the AY protocol.
Yeah, is that it? Yeah, is AY have?
Yeah, these are AY.
Okay, so they are not, those are not gonna be backwards compatible with, the old, Mikrotik.
Actually, they are.
They are, okay.
They can work in AY, and they'll work in the older, what was it it wasn't, I forget what their older protocol was, whether it was AX. It wasn't AX. Yeah, that's the Wi-Fi 6. I forget what the old protocol was, but I did test because I went to some of my networks that I just kept like 2 clients on each AP.
Uh-huh.
I went and replaced the APs with these and connected all the clients to it, and it works. And I was able to put like 6 clients on one sector, even though they had the legacy older CPEs. They're working, and only like at night times when everybody's on streaming and stuff am I seeing packet collisions, because it can't.
AD. 802.11.AD is the older one. I just went to their website and I was like, well, which one was the wireless wire? Because I know that's the one in wireless wire dish. Yeah, okay, so it's AD and then AY. I need to see, I'm guessing there has to be some sort of TDMA that they've implemented in 802.11AY.
Yeah.
And AY is only going to be the 60 gigahertz, the 5 gigahertz backup radio that's built into these radios is going to be 802.11 AC. No AX for us guys yet. You guys can continue complaining about that on the forums.
Yeah, I know this
for
is
every single firmware release that Ubiquiti, that Mikrotik puts out. I see it every time. I'm like, yep, they're complaining about that again.
And in the reality, like, it's a backup radio. Who cares? Who really cares? I was using these guys with Omni antennas on it. And this was monsoon season failover. I just had the little Mikrotik 5 gigahertz pucks that I just strapped on there. So they had their 60 on the top, the 5 was on the bottom, and when monsoon season came through, it just flipped over and they got 20-30 megs over the 5 gig failover. And that's the beauty of Mikrotik. It was cost effective to have 2 networks. It was cheaper to have 2 networks in Mikrotik than it was to do the CN wave thing.
Okay.
And yes, I just QR coded all my equipment.
Honestly, it makes life a little bit easier, especially when you want to. I mean, we had the barcodes on our stuff, and it's like, who has a barcode reader? Well, actually, we did supposedly for inventory purposes, but
yeah,
QR code. At least you can link, put a link over. Well, so there's the new Ubiquiti fun stuff. I think it's gonna be interesting seeing where that goes. I really feel like with LTU and how not popular it's been with people, it's going to be good that Ubiquiti has some newer products that their 60 gigahertz products have been pretty successful. So I'm really hopeful that This is going to be a new little bit of lifeblood for their ISP space, yeah, to make it so guys can, they're competitive and having a new offering again. I may bash on them, but I want them to be successful. Speaking of which, you mentioned were you aware that the AF60 and AF60LR are Class A radios, and that they have higher requirements for how it's located in relation to other radios and human beings?
Huh? No.
Yeah. So this was also reported by another little brother, Sean, and it comes with an RF exposure warning that antennas used for this transmitter must be installed to provide a separation distance of at least 110 centimeters from all persons and must not be located or operating in conjunction with any other antenna or transmitter. That's on the Ubiquiti's manual that they submitted to the FCC, but is not on the manual that you can find online. So that's quite the, 110 centimeters. Yeah, that's like what, 3.5 feet ish.
Yeah, about.
Somewhere around that. Yeah. So, all right, that's pretty easy to overcome. I'm curious as what they mean by conjunction with other antenna and transmitter. Probably that just means that you're not allowed to like use the same antenna for the same radio or something like that. That doesn't, I can't see that being a, hey, you aren't allowed to put 2 radios on the same tower.
No, I have like
insane to me.
It's like one of our towers, I have like 860 point-to-points on it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, some of them are not 3 feet apart. And
yeah,
it hasn't been an issue.
So I'm not extremely familiar with Class A filing and what that particularly means, but just keep that in mind. We have a little bit more powerful of a radio going on here than probably what most guys are used to. And a lot of guys don't have a 11 gigahertz link and or some other license link where you're going to be getting into somewhat significant amounts of power. Admittedly, probably not going to get RF burns from either one of these, but long-term exposure, you're definitely going to not want to have a properly set up 11 gigahertz. You do not want to spend a long time in front of, just because it's not healthy. It's way more power than you're going to get, and that's why we put them so that you aren't nailing people. 5 gigahertz were very, very tiny amounts of power, but you want to keep those other radios away from people because you don't want to hurt anybody. So just keep that in mind.
Maybe that's why it's so special.
The special sauce, yeah, is that they're rocking a lot higher power. And maybe that will be why why we haven't seen some of the Ubiquiti 60 gigahertz stuff going to certain countries, because I know like in the UK, 24 gigahertz is lower power. You have even lower, very, very low power that you can use in 24 gigahertz, which makes like the Mimosa B24 just not perform at all over there, just because you have so little power and such a tiny little antenna.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so yeah, that's going to be interesting. So just keep that in mind, guys. Be careful. You're probably not going to be anything like burn or hurt yourself, but definitely keep that in mind when you're setting up your radios. not supposed to point these at people.
You mean
So
you're not supposed to get in front of the radio to make sure it's square? Like, okay, looks even.
I'd do it. In a short period of time, it's gonna be fine. But yeah, the loonies, have a point of don't put this next to your head where you sleep.
Exactly. Like I have people ask me all the time because we're tower climbers. So it's like we go up and do stuff for T-Mobile, Verizon, not so much Verizon anymore. It's mostly all Ericsson's guys now, but and other WISP operators as well as we also help out the tribes and everything out here. So we're on the tower so much, and people like, oh, how do you deal? Do you have to wear like radiation suits and all that stuff while you climb and everything? No, I wouldn't, even if they said I had to. Like, it's Arizona. You know how hot it is. Do you want to be in a radiation suit climbing?
I get you. I feel you, bro.
No. And it's like, no, like I've been around this gear. I mean, back in the 80s was the first like real microwave link that I put up, where we had to clear trees and everything like that because we could literally set the tree on fire. Now they're all outlawed. Everybody had to tear them down. Funny thing is, we're doing a lot of work in Mexico right now. You probably see some of it on Facebook and stuff. And there's radios we find that somebody's went through and like ripped all the connectors out of them and stuff to keep people from using them. But they were the old straight up like strap a dish to the magnetron on your microwave, and that was basically it.
Couple thousand watts,
Yeah.
just screaming along. Wow.
Yeah.
So that would be like the kind of radios that the classic like Darwin Award guy got for was in front of that cooked him.
Yeah. And we had people that would try to do these links and stuff, and yeah, they start forest fires and stuff like that. The first one that I did, actually, we had to set up 2 dishes because, and these were $60,000 a piece, so 120 grand to get, and it was a very fast link, state of the art. It was a whopping like 4.5 megabits each way, going from New Philadelphia, Ohio to Bolivar, Ohio. And it kept going offline because 15 minutes. So the radios would disconnect, and their renegotiation cycle took 15 minutes to resync. And we're like, what the hell's going on? And we're driving the whole link. This is 30-mile link. So we're driving along with binoculars, making sure like, is a tree swaying in it and everything? What's going on? We're driving along, and there's these birds flying along, and one just blows up. Call the guy on the other side. I'm like, hey, did the link just go down? He's like, yeah. I'm like, holy, we're blowing up birds.
Way too hot.
Yeah. And so we had to set up 2 dishes, so that way if a bird flew into one and it blew up, the other link took over. And then they outlawed them a little bit after that because it was probably somebody likes birds and got pissed.
Well, I mean, if you have, there's a lot of different, somebody flying an airplane might not be good for them. And those little private planes, they go anywhere they want.
Yeah.
Huh.
I used to be able to fly from Carroll County, Ohio over to Michigan, pick up John Deere parts and fly them back until 9/11. And after that, I'm like, nope. Unless you want shot down. They're like, are you a licensed pilot? I'm like, sure.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, you were doing a 5 megabit link for over 30 miles. Well, guess what? The Japanese actually just did 1 petabit per second on a single fiber.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hitting the news. So that's pretty. Now, admittedly, I think it's a little bit unfair to say because it's not on a single wavelength. It's actually they muxed the heck out of it. 600 and something channel mux is what I was reading. So that was like, well, okay, if you're gonna mux like that, that's okay. But they did. There was 3 different sets of channels and like a couple hundred in each one. And then they were doing it over a 32 miles of fiber. So that's pretty darn impressive. So, cause you're going to need to do, I think the article was saying that they had amplifiers as well in there. So, you have the full system.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty cool. So to put that in perspective, there's an Infinera somebody was talking about link that'll put 27 and some change terabits per second on a single fiber. And Mike Hammett was mentioning a fiber store new product that will get you all the way that'll put 400 gigabits per second on a single wavelength, and then they have cards on there that will do I think 96 channel mux is what I was reading. So I can't remember off the top of my head, and I have to look at the whole product line, but FiberStore now in the multiple 100 gigabit, and you're talking let's see here, when Mike was mentioning this, I was like, wow, that's pretty darn impressive. And the FiberStore, the system itself was $2,500 for the chassis, not counting the optics. And I think the optics for a long distance link was a couple grand at least, being FiberStore prices. Yeah, 11,000. Admittedly, that was for a 400 gig tunable DWDM 80 kilometer optic. So you're going to be pushing a lot of bandwidth through this. You aren't doing this for the lulls, and a frequency range of 190.7 to 196.65 terahertz. So new cool stuff. We can do bandwidth, guys. Us self-funded. I could see a smaller ISP being able to purchase this and running 400 gigs from one side of their network to another. Like, that's awesome. That's a really cool opportunity to be able to have.
Well, it's like a lot of people think like of small WISPs and stuff like that. Like, oh, we run everything as like cheap as possible. We only use like what will just work. And it's like, we just did a tower full 3 gigahertz 450M 360-degree sweep. So it's like, that's $12,000 in AP.
And each one of those, that's 4 of them.
It's 4 of them. So it's $48,000 just in APs. We still had to put in the tower, still had to do the excavation, concrete, conduit, closures, everything. So it's like, at the end of the day, we were out almost a $200,000 install. It's like, no, like small WISPs and networks, it's expensive, and we don't use the cheapest.
Well, yeah, and to feed all of that, that's each of those 450Ms, you want to run fiber to it because you don't really want to do. Did you do fiber, or did you try to do 10 gig copper?
No, that's all. It's fiber. We ran hybrid cables to it, so fiber and DC. There's some backup Cat 6 lines there, but that's only if somebody shoots the fiber or something, which has happened. But yeah,
Unfortunately, yeah,
guys
yeah.
like shooting stuff that have lights on it. I don't get it. But
Surprise.
yeah,
Yeah, no, so and so, all right, that's each one of those is going to be doing I think what's the for the 3 gigahertz, it's a little bit less aggregate bandwidth is what I recall for the 450M, correct?
yeah.
Than the 5 gigahertz. So what's the aggregate bandwidth that one of those guys can push?
I've seen. I haven't seen above a gig go through those. I've seen them put through 800, 850 megs going through from clients. We've just started with them, so ours is pretty well between the 150, 200 megs, pretty steady through the APs throughout the day. At nighttime, they're doing 400 or 500 megs pretty steadily. But
So you've yet to really load them up.
Yeah, I haven't loaded them up yet. I think our heaviest loaded one has like 15 clients on it, so not that much. I got logged into when I was shopping around. The Cambium reps were continually calling me all the time. I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't care what you have to say. Get me an operator that will let me log into their CN Maestro, or they can do a screen share or whatever. Show me that this thing does what you say it does. And it was somebody in North Carolina that logged into their CN Maestro and screen shared me, and he logged into his 1450M, and he had 140 clients on it.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Or 3 gigahertz 450M. And you can do a bandwidth test from the AP out to all the client CPEs, and he was still getting 50 megs like coming in.
Wow.
It was 50 down and 50 up. And I'm like, okay, well, now I have to buy it.
Yeah. Now I have to go talk to the bank.
Which is my wife.
Yeah.
But,
as is usual for a good man. She keeps you in line. So yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's still pretty impressive. Oh, okay.
Here, so
okay. So you're the employee. You're the employee. Good way to be. Us employees, we gotta forever. Yeah. No, I'm really excited for the 450Ms. It's looking like I think they just did another firmware release. I didn't get it in the notes, but that was just a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was in there? Was there anything of particular note good?
Not. Basically, they're fixing just some of the like glitchy stuff where people were seeing like reboots at random times, and where like certain CPEs were getting booted. There was also some VLAN issues, some routing issues that were fixed. Mostly that. I didn't see like any like big features or anything like that, but that's not Cambium style really. They don't really do big features. It's like here it is. This is what it does network stuff, and that's about it.
Yeah, don't ask for anything more. We make it do network stuff.
Exactly. And sometimes we're like, can you just make these things simpler? Like just have it come out of the box, DHCP'd, and that's it. We just plug it in. It pulls an IP, we find it, and we log in, start configuring stuff. And Kim is like, why would we do that? Like,
yeah. Well, that's Cambium. They do they're rocking in a whole different level scale than a lot of us ever see. But yeah, the 450M, it's been really successful, and I'm pretty excited to see that continue to be take names and kick butt. So
It does that pretty well, especially if you've climbed up a tower with one of them on your back. It definitely kicks you.
that thing is, yeah, those things are heavy. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, there's a lot of copper there and
Oh, yeah.
other weighty materials. Before we get off of Cambium, before we completely get off of Ubiquiti, just a quick note, one of the little brothers had this issue and I hadn't seen it before. He has a Ubiquiti Edgeswitch S16, I believe is the name of it. I'm just pulling it up to get his words. Had it failed, took down 3 Rocket Prism Gen 2s with it. It was mounted up on a rooftop, was powering a couple air fiber 24s and a couple prisms. It died, and the AF24s came up, and 3 of the prisms came back up, but 3 of them were just burnt out and did not come back up or anything. So not a lot. He was just posted that, and I was like, interesting. And so I was wondering if that might be like a grounding issue, or if there might be something else that was going on that people had seen that maybe they could, if somebody could come out of the woodworks. Have you run many of the S16s?
No. Most likely his problem was most likely over wattage. That was a common thing I saw in the 16 port switches, whether it was like the Unify 16 PoE or the Edgeswitch 16. I can say the Unify 16, I've seen that one die randomly. So that one I can defend. The Edgeswitch 16, I have not seen one of those.
Edge point is the word.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, my bad.
Okay. The edge point I've never actually used, so I can't really comment there. But the Edgeswitch 16, I've only ever seen those fail when people like loaded up all 16 ports doing PoE over all of them. Just using like SFP to feed network to it. I've seen those burn up. But when I was using edge switches in our network, I just defaulted to the 48 port 750 watts. So I didn't have to worry about it really. Because every time I tried building like a little network, people
you would have to
grow.
yeah. Oh no, I had a tower. I was like, oh, we're only ever gonna need 8 ports on this one. We could probably even we were a Netonic shop, and I had been tempted to even just do one of the little 5 porters because it's just a sub tower, and then like a year or 2 later, it's like, oh man, we have a lot of those access points got really full really fast. Well, I guess we got to put up another one, or 2, and then like ran out of ports on the switch, and we had to daisy chain from that tower to another tower, and it's like, God. So I put in another switch.
Yep.
And like an idiot, I just did another A port because it's like, oh, this backhaul is never gonna have to, we don't need anything more. It's fine. And then, nope, like without fail, oh, this one's full. And then luckily it died. One of the switches died on us, and so I was just like, forget it, we're done. Just put a 48 port in there. Or no, it was Netonics doesn't have any 48ers. It was the bigger one. It was the 18 port with the 2 SFPs, I think.
Yeah. My problem with Netonics is no SFP plus. I'm like, they really need 10 gig at least, to where I don't know, the net power 16Ps have been so solid and so good.
From Mikrotik.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues with it. A lot of people always are like, yeah, they got no high wattage ports. I'm like, I just run home runs for those. Like,
yeah,
just run those to the bottom of the tower and be done with it. Like, really, do I even want to deal with like high wattage supplies and everything on like high up on the tower? Probably not. And that's, I mean, I know that's why Mike always is like, where's the SFP slots? Because
Yep.
I mean, I'm the same way. I would rather use fiber and DC power it. And I can deal with the DC plant at the bottom, and that's not complicated. I have two wires. It's like, all right, if one broke, cool. Or if I'm out,
And it's a lot cheaper wiring too.
yeah,
You know, and you don't have to get it shielded if you're on, like, I see so many guys on the forums who are dealing with long run Ethernet issues, or not even very all that long run, but
Yeah.
guys dealing with Ethernet issues. And it's like, yeah, DC, like, oh, just as an FYI, Netonix does have the Edgeswitch 3. It's a 14 port, 2 SFP pluses, and then 12 ports, Ethernet. So
Is that a DC version or is it AC?
DC.
Oh,
Yep. 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 With Switch 3, they finally, so I don't know if it's in stock or if you can get it anywhere. Classically is their AC version is $50 cheaper. So it's $1,000 for the DC one and $950 for the AC one. And I was wrong. I was we used the Wiswitch 26.
yeah.
That's what I meant to say. Not that there is no 16 porter. But yeah, it's everybody's been really hit hard. So hopefully those are going to be hitting. Although I might be getting to play with some of the new CN Matrix switches here soon. So I'm kind of hopeful about that.
I was kind of disappointed with those.
You were?
Bummer. I was hoping those were gonna be like a drop-in replacement for the Netonix, and basically they're not, or even the Mikrotik, because from what I'm seeing is they have ports, correct me if I'm wrong, that these are 24, these are 48, or high wattage 48, and that's about it. You can't just like take one port, switch it to 24, switch it to 48, or switch it to 24 VA or 48 VA.
I think I remember something like that. Yeah, when I was looking at the spec sheets, it's like you had your high wattage ports and then your low wattage ports. And there wasn't switching around, which is a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, it's like Netonix is kind of like that as well, because it's usually have a block of high wattage ports. The rest,
but you can do like down to 24 volt.
Yes.
On the high wattage ports if you wanted to.
Yes.
I never actually, that's why I have the, I traditionally didn't use the low number ports on any of my switches, because I wanted to save my high wattage ones on my Netonixes, and management is always port 24, whatever the highest port number is.
Yeah.
So bad habits that a company will build into you. So yeah, hopefully, but they've been really hard to keep up with and keep stuff together. Let's see. Speaking of Mikrotik, we've got a couple new versions of Router SV7 hitting the market. May 31st, they came out with 7.3 RC1, which was kind of long. Some BGP updates that I was excited about, and then some layer 3 hardware offloading as well. And then instead of completely removing, they are now displaying a warning for cake type in simple and tree setups when the bandwidth parameter is configured. And I believe, so I think we're starting to kind of figure out some more of what's going on with that. There is some bugs, because you can, when you create a cake queue, there's two different ways that you can set it up. You can create a cake queue if it's that is like a 5 megabit per second cake queue, and you can set that inside of the queue type itself, or you can just create a generalized cake queue queue type, and then assign that to a simple queue or into a queue tree, and then do your bandwidth limiting. And that's the way that I was using Cake in my network, and it's probably one reason why I didn't see nearly as many issues as enough issues to even be able to justify why that removal. So which is one reason why I was confused, but I'm guessing is what some people were running into, because I know in my early testing, if I would set that bandwidth and not set some other things correctly, I could just straight up crash some of the smaller Mikrotiks, like a 450, I think was what I was using on router board 450 something. It was just down, and they were just going to a reboot loop. So I'm guessing that there's some sort of bug in there.
Yeah.
You run in V7 in any of your network?
All of it.
You're insane like me. What made you go to V7?
Honestly, 0-tier. So I pulled all of our 1036s, and I had some 1036s, and the rest of my routers were still edge routers. So thankfully, because the market has been out of stock of almost everything, that funded my insanity of buying all of the 2116s I could. So our network now is full BGP. You helped me with some of the OSPF shit that I gave up on.
No, don't tell them. I would never admit to this, to assisting someone for this insanity. Yeah, no, I did. I did warn you.
Yes. Yeah, he did warn me. It was fair. So with your help and my drunken stupor in Mexico, labbing out BGP and route redistribution, now our network is all RB5009s and 2116s. So our tower switches are all 5009s. Our fiber pop site, like backhaul sites, are all 2116s. They're all running router OS 723. So that's the latest stable router OS 7.
There won't be a long term for a long time.
Yes. And to be honest, it's like I run like 2 or 3 protocols, so it's all simple. I think that is one of the biggest secrets of having a stable network, is like, don't complicate it. So it's like all of our routes are BGP, they're redistributed. So my internal network is all private ASNs to make sure I don't pull a Verizon. And if my upstream doesn't filter out private ASNs, that's their fault.
I can't argue that point. That is, I know I talked to you about filters.
Yes.
Actually, no, you have a pretty good filter system. I looked at your filters too. Yeah. But yes, no. Being good internet citizens.
Electric.
Oh yeah.
Private ASNs.
Oh yeah. I guarantee. Yeah. Code. I actually have worked with Cogent once, and sending at least in Colorado. I don't know, elsewhere, but they filtered out a lot of goofy stuff that I was sending them, and to drop the connection because I was sending them a lot of goofy stuff unintentionally.
Yeah. So then my tower routers, they just I create a VLAN for the CPEs, for the CP routers. And then all my CP devices, they have a management VLAN that's just passed through. So now that I got a couple /22s, it's so simple. It's like I just go in, oh, this is this customer's VLAN. They go from if they want a public IP, I just, all right, delete this IP, put in this public one, route it back to here. Boom, there I go. That's really, really simple. I'm so glad to be rid of all of the almost 2,000 VLANs that I had before. For each client, I had a /31 VLAN for every single client. And that's
Okay.
my isolation. And to where randomly I just would leave like DHCP clients on like VLAN 1, which I just didn't use. So when people would plug their router in backwards, just so I would know. And,
Yeah, the sins of our past always
Oh,
catch
yeah.
up with us. More so in networking than elsewhere, in my opinion.
It's a
Yeah,
lot
no.
less managed now because now each tower is its own completely separate ASN. So
Mhm.
now nothing can affect each other like it was before.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, even though I didn't use like my flat network, I just left it empty, didn't put anything on it, just DHCP clients just to know when customers mess things up. You still had all that broadcast data.
Mhm.
So it was amazing just to see like the throughput and the stability of things, just eliminating layer 2 altogether. So just layer 3 routing through and through, no longer a layer 2, cuts down on so much stuff.
So, yes, everybody, we don't want to do large layer 2s, but so like for me, I did when going back when we were a large layer 2 network. Luckily, it wasn't quite. It wasn't all one layer 2. It was one layer 2 that had like layer 2s. The towers were routed underneath it, but
Yeah.
you could go from all the way on one side all the way to the other side of the network. That was just this one giant broadcast domain. And so we never let. I wasn't like when I first got hired. I was not allowed to touch anything on the tower side for a year and a half before I was able to prove to my boss that I was not an incompetent fool who would make a loop. And so that was how my old company is before I got out of layer 2, and dealing with one of our solutions for keeping things from crashing entirely was just policy, human policy. And then also one of the things that proved that I was competent is I got bridge horizons in our Mikrotik switch, and then the Netonics, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, port isolation working. So I got that so that customers couldn't talk from one access point to another. We had in between access points. They couldn't talk in between. If they were in the same access point, they couldn't talk directly to each other, but we didn't have that in between two different access points. So I implemented that, or like proposed it, and then showed my boss how to do it, and then did it. And so that's what got me out of the you are not allowed to touch anything pool. So that's one way. And I believe Mrs. Fixit, Sarah Kerr on Facebook, she has some really good videos on her YouTube channel about doing that. So those would be something I would recommend highly for anybody. What about you? Do you have any hints for the guys? Because everyone starts off doing it with a layer 2 because it's simple and it's straightforward. And I'm not going to blame anybody for doing it that way, because you're just trying to get rolling.
If it comes down to like, if your knowledge level is at, I am going to do a layer 2, or I'm not going to build this network, just do the layer 2. Like it's that simple. If it comes down to starting or not starting, don't let it stop you. But definitely if you're starting out from scratch, try to start out with Mikrotik gear. The STP in Mikrotik is a lot better than edge switches from Ubiquiti, to the point where, like you're saying, Serker's solution for being able to do layer 2 redundant point-to-points with STP. That has saved my butt many of times, especially with 60 gig LR shots over. One of my shots was 7.5 miles. That doesn't in production anymore, but it was there for maybe a year or so. And my backup radios was to light beam Gen 2s. So they were just sitting there being blocked by STP 99.8% of the time, except for monsoons. Then they would flip over and they would move all the packets they could, which wasn't a lot, but it would get through the rainstorm. And Mikrotik is good enough to know when that link reestablishes on the 60s, boom, it goes right back over. The problem with edge switches, and this is why I gained a lot of pleasure by ripping them out, they would just decide to stop using STP randomly. And those redundant point-to-points turned into loops. Especially it was a problem in MDUs. Most people wouldn't think this, but believe it or not, there's maintenance personnel in MDUs that don't know what the cabling is. So I would have them snipping shit on occasion, or just, I need this for the vacuum cleaner. So I would run redundant cables and switches, so that way if somebody unplugs something, it just goes to the other switch. So it's like I was doing like hillbilly Metro Ethernet networking
inside of an MDU, because I honestly, well, and the Metro Ethernet, like one thing going for switches is like you have so much hardware offloading and you can do stuff so fast. Like and we're starting to now see layer 3 hardware offloading, and like what wire speed routing can look like in Mikrotik land. You know, the big guys have had that for a few years now. Admittedly, actually, some of the fiber store switches that I played around with technically could do that. I was like, why would you ever want to do that? And now it's like, oh, this is brilliant. This is awesome. It's so cool to do. But there's a lot of great reasons to do it. But so you can do that at a really low price point. It's less so much of an argument now, I think, just because we're getting effective, good working layer 3 hardware offloads on relatively inexpensive equipment. The CRS like 317 and 328 or 326, whichever one of those are, that has the huge hardware off, like you can put like 300,000 routes or something in it. It's like internal network, great, boom. So you're gonna be able to start off and go fast really easily.
To where that was, the MDU space was literally what killed the Ubiquiti edge switch line for us, because that I would just have the switches randomly ignore STP and just loop everything. And I haven't had that with Mikrotiks at all. I haven't had that problem with Natonics, but I have had problems with Natonics just stop moving packets until they're rebooted. Honestly, it hasn't happened. I think they finally got that fixed in their later firmwares. That was mostly like a 5.8 something firmware.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
5.14 now. I haven't had that issue, I don't think, since 5.12.
Yeah, no, I can't say I've seen it since 5.12. I think it's ringing a bell for me. that's it was a pretty reasonably stable firmware. Somewhere in there we got the batch of switches that were dead, wouldn't switch unless you reloaded the firmware. But yeah, the Nutanix actually I've really rarely had many bad issues with them.
That was 586, I think it was the one that you either had to reload 584 or 585 to get switching working.
Yeah, and then you could upgrade to 586, I think. Yeah, it is. You had to like downgrade. I thought it was just reload the same one. It's just the firmware that they loaded on it was a bad load.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that happening, but
Yeah.
and then it bit me too, because like I remember looking at that and being like, oh wow, that's terrible. That happens for those guys. And then like a few months later, we bought a Nutanix and I was installing it, wasn't working.
That delayed building out a tower a whole day because we spent 10 hours on the tower pulling up all the access points and then all the cabling and everything. And then of course I was being naively hopeful of taking the Nutanix out of the box.
Oh,
it just was delivered the night before and putting it in the weather box and hooking it up and hoping it worked. And we're recrimping cables. We're doing all this stuff, trying to figure out like what's going on. I'm seeing link lights. I'm like, no, it's not the switch. There's link lights. What's going on? And the deceitful thing of the Nutanix was if you plugged your computer into the Nutanix and went to the static IP, it worked.
Yeah, you could get to it. You could any of the ports. I was so bad because like I thought I had been the wise network administrator who was programmed his equipment ahead of time.
Yeah.
No, I had configured it. I was like, okay, cool. I can log into it, powers things up, sweet, awesome. Like and then it was like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, because that's all.
Turn it up.
Yeah, because all that I did was I was delivered, took it out of the box, plugged it in, tested, like logged in. Okay, cool. Everything looks in. I moved the cable, a few different ports, logged back in. All right, cool. Switch is good. Send it up the tower. Nope.
Yep. And that's why they tell you to bench test everything, ladies and gentlemen, is if you have a switch, make certain it switches. If you're going to be using VLANs, make certain it VLANs.
I'm having that issue right now. On one of the mountains, I have a Mikrotik switch there. I just got to go net install it or something. I don't know. It won't pass VLANs from one point to another. But if I create the VLANs on the tower router, it goes out through the switch to all the access points. Everything works fine. But if I'm creating the VLAN on another router, on the other side of a point-to-point, it won't come through. So I don't know. But that's weird.
Yeah. One of the reason why we have a job.
Yeah. Because everybody's like, that doesn't make any sense. I know. I wouldn't be asking if it made sense.
Put that in the Brothers WISP Slack group. I'd love to plink on that one when I got a little bit of time today, or probably tomorrow, next week. Sometime. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's interesting. One of all the little wonderful things, but yeah, no, the old guys, they tell us to do things certain ways, and it's like, well, that takes forever. They do it for a good reason. So yeah, go ahead and bench test your stuff. Speaking of the Brothers WISP Slack group, we actually had somebody who was asking about, he had this really fun little problem and was asking, so he has towers A, B, C, D, and E, and high capacity bandwidth links going in between them, and from A to B, he can do 1 gigabit per second TCP and UDP B tests. A to C, same thing. A to D, plus 1 gigabits per second. A to E drops down to 200 megabits per second on the TCP test, but still will do a gigabit on the for a UDP test. So, which is what I hooked onto. Now he can do gigabit from E to D just fine, and E to C and E to B gigabit all day long. E to A drops back down on the TCP side, gigabit on the UDP side. And so I was like, oh wow, that sounds like something that I'm not the network amazing person that I think I am. I'm like, that sounds like TCP windowing, because TCP, you're going to have every packet that goes out, there has to be a response. Well, actually not every, but so many packets that go out, there has to be a response from the receiver saying, yep, I got these, and they got them all in order. You don't go ahead and send me the next batch. So what's happening there? And so I mentioned that, and I'm like, I think I'm probably wrong, and but I think smarter people than I would call that TCP windowing. And Thomas Cornett comes in and is like, oh, yep, and very much goes through. And so give me a moment, and I will give you his whole spiel, because he really actually did a great job explaining what was going on. And yeah, here we go. Did a really, really nice job. And this is kind of the opportunities that people get interacting with really smart people on the Brothers WISP. So please join up. Completely normal TCP behavior on half duplex links with higher latency. 9 milliseconds per second is high enough. Both TCP windowing and half duplex nature of the links play a role. This can actually be adjusted in the OS TCP stat config. You can increase and or decrease windowing aggressiveness, in effect its tolerance for loss, and it will window higher, reach higher speeds. So because if you increase the window, you're going to have more packets that could be lost before the receiver tells the sender, hey, by the way, I missed these packets, you need to resend those. So that could be, you would have a spike in latency and a pretty significant decrease in aggregate bandwidth if you have a lossy link, if you increase the TCP window there. Another option is to increase the MTU, but as we all know, once you get out onto the internet, you're not gonna have awesome MTU. So you're stuck at 1500. So if you're internal your network, that's definitely something useful. And by increasing the MTU, you're increasing the size of the packets that you're sending. And so with that increase, that also really makes that can increase the amount of bandwidth that you have, because the window is larger in height instead of width. So you can pass more traffic, which is quite helpful for some things. So if now, unfortunately, the guy who is having this, it didn't seem like that might be the case. And he's still doing some diagnostics with it. So if somebody else has a brilliant idea, be more than happy to shoot us a line or join up on Patreon, and we'd be really happy to have you throw your thoughts in there. But from the looks of it, yeah, I think after it looks like they're looking for interface errors as well. But it's a really good introduction and just kind of walking through about some of those little issues in diagnostics, and guys helping each other out. So that was the one really cool point in the group. Oh, and also I guess Mimosa, we have a Mimosa rep, Dustin Stock, has joined us up and helps out in the Mimosa, answering Mimosa questions. So that's kind of cool. So If you have questions, he'd be more than happy to help you out. Dustin's a really great guy. And of note, they just announced they've been doing 1 gigabit per second fixed wireless access service using 6 gigahertz spectrum using their new A6 platform. And there's their A6 and C6 platform. And they were doing that with Resound Networks over a distance of 3.5 miles.
And those are sector shots?
Yeah, so that's going to be using the A6 radio, which is a 90-degree wide fixed access point, like the 450M.
Yeah.
But it can use up to 160 megahertz wide channels in the 6 gigahertz, and has and they say demonstrating up to 1.84 gigabits per second aggregate speed to subscribers, individual, and then with a 7 gigabits per second total capacity. So
they do have SFP plus ports, right?
that's yes. So the one that I got to play with at Wispapalooza, yeah, they had SFP plus and 10 gig Ethernet copper ports as well, and then one gig copper for management, I believe. So that's pretty exciting. I think they had 2 SFP. It's the demo one. I think they dropped they might be dropping the second SFP plus, but that's going to be that's exciting to see. Get more. I know Dustin has been posting pictures on the WISP Talk group, and then the Mimosa Facebook group of some of the performance numbers that he's been doing as far as testing and such. So that's really exciting to see, because they were really hopeful to be getting some stuff rolling this spring, but the shipping issues and COVID and such seem to have delayed them a lot, unfortunately. So everyone's really hopeful, and I think everyone is really excited because we're talking, the 450Ms, those are $12,000 access points. I believe they were talking $1,200, I think, for this 2000, I think, for the AF6 is what they were talking about as price point. That's what I recall from Wispapalooza, which will be really cool if they can hit a pretty low price point. Although the C6X is going to be a little bit more expensive. I think that was supposed to be like $160 for that radio. But that's supposed to have like GPS on it or something like that. It's supposed to be a kind of expensive little bugger. So.
I still have these sitting around.
Yeah, you didn't have a good experience with the Mimosa stuff.
No, not at all. And it's every network I've seen here in Arizona that's been using Mimosa has been trash. Like just even Suddenlink, out there that they had service down for a week and couldn't fix it. That's all their fixed wireless stuff was all Mimosa. And I'm like, can I find a network around here that's Mimosa that actually works?
Up in Colorado, you could, unfortunately.
Because even at Colorado City, Arizona, they have was TDK out there. Same thing. They run Cambium and Mimosa. Most of their new stuff was all Mimosa, and I haven't seen any happy customers or any customer there that was getting what they were paying for. They're supposed to be getting like 25 megs every time I would go run a speed test. It was like 2.5 to 1.5 megs. I'm like, yeah, you're not even getting close to 20.
Oh no, that's rough.
And
No, I've forever been admitted that I am a little bit of a Mimosa fanboy. So, but yeah, there's definitely some network operators out there who have some pretty rough Mimosa deployments.
yeah,
And it's a bummer.
I don't know. Like, I wonder, because I've seen such horrible Ubiquiti WISPs, and I've seen such horrible Cambium, such horrible Mimosa, and then I've seen where people make all of that equipment work and be successful and stable. Except for Mimosa, I just have to take your word for it. But it's like, I wonder if it is just a mindset thing, because I'm like, I've seen all in the same environment, some of the equipment works, some of the equipment falls on its face. The only difference has been the operators, to where it's also like, anymore, it's kind of like, you know what, I like Cambium. Like, you know what, if you like Cambium, you make it work and customers want to pay for it, great.
Yeah.
Buy it. I can't stand any of the Cambium EPMP line. The 450 line is a totally different beast, and if you log into both the radios, they're completely different.
Yeah, completely different operating system and everything.
Yeah, it's, if somebody showed me both managements without seeing the branding, I would think it was different manufacturers. I wouldn't even think they were the same manufacturer. But the 450 line has been, I probably learned and started getting those stable just out of necessity, honestly, because it's the 450M or you're going LTE for CBRS. And I was not adding that much complication to my network to implement LTE, because LTE, it's like magic pixie fart dust encapsulating IP stack and back and forth.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find anybody that could explain what the protocol actually does. I'm like, all right, when something goes wrong, how do I diagnose it? They're like, oh, you keep a golden image, you reload that and reboot everything.
That's a really helps me feel secure at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
like LTE engineers and so on and so forth. They're like, yeah, just keep your golden images, get your configuration and everything working. Once you get that, take an image, save that, and once anything screws up, you just reload it. I'm like, you're telling me to diagnose a computer by doing a reformat? Like don't worry about how it works. That's not important. And
I'm certain there's somebody out there who could give us a little bit. I'd love to. I'd be curious. It's a really cool looking standard. I just have never been able to spend the time on it. So, but well, isn't there's also Tirana.
Yeah, if
Did you get to
don't
play
want
with
to
them
make
yet?
money.
Yeah, it's a subscription model, but everything's going subscription model these days, even your radios.
Yeah, you could have said that about World War II. We're like, oh, everybody's turning to Nazis. Let's just go along with it. You don't need those other races anyway, or zipping on horses or anything like that, whatever else you want to kill.
Yes, we call it evil, but I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see how that model works out. Because Mimosa kind of sort of was doing that with their like C5X. You could unlock the faster port and faster point-to-point speeds or something like that. But they abandoned that. I want to say Ubiquiti were trying to do something like that too.
I don't remember Ubiquiti ever trying something that stupid, but the thing is, it's like people tolerate it to a point. It's like people, when it's new, there's this hype. They're like,
Mhm.
oh, it works so good, yeah, it's I don't actually own it or whatever, but it works. But after you have it up there a couple years, you're still paying that. And if your business runs into hard times, what are you going to resent? Well, that shit that you paid 20 grand for, it's up on a tower, you're still paying monthly licensing fees for it. That people start to resent it.
Yeah. Well, now to be fair for Tirana, you're not paying for the access point. They're license free for that. You're paid per client device that's connected, is what I recall.
So you own
am I wrong?
you own the sector. You just can't hook anything up to it unless
Well,
you pay for
well,
it.
you get a speed. I think you get 50 megabits per second free, and then above that, it's the per client device that you have running. If you want like the fully unloaded, it's like, I don't remember what the prices were actually. It's some amount of money per month. So if you have a revenue generating source from that radio, you should be able to make enough money to pay for it. But if you're like my old network where we would just leave the radios at the house when somebody moved out, in the hope, like with the like, oh hey, tell the next people moving in, we're so awesome, go ahead and get us. We would always do that. And sometimes we wouldn't. And then there'd be a radio connected to the network, and it's like, well, I would actually kick it off the network. I would change the SSID that it would be connecting to, and then it would go away, and put it onto the schedule. Like, hey, somebody go pick that up, which would never actually happen because it's $120 radio, and it was there for 2-3 years. You already made your money.
The truck to it,
Yeah. Unfortunately, which always made me feel really bad because it's like, it's $120 radio, like we should. So it means I'm a terrible employee who cares more about that than the company, but whatever.
Your whole thought process changes when you go from a business owner to employee. Employees you only see part of the picture. From the business owner standpoint, I always look at, okay, how much does it cost to roll the truck? How much does it cost for the guy's time driving the truck? How much time will it take him to get there, take the radio down, and how much time to get doing another money-making activity? Usually it was always more than the CPEs.
Yep.
So I never leave like the CPEs still connected to the sector. Just because I got too many smart kids around in trailer parks with too much time. So that
never trust those kids.
No, never trust those kids. And I had one kid just like creating and deleting routes and stuff randomly. I'm like, okay, that's Gilport.
And that gets dropped. Yep.
And they're useful for finding like exploits and stuff, because it's like that one Mikrotik management exploit that they fixed
years and years ago.
And
then still everyone got bit by it like 3 years later when somebody actually made it into a virus.
Yep. So yeah, the kids found it, and that another reason why I'm like RouterOS version 7.
At least you have a fresh.
Yeah.
Yep.
And because I guess there was like configs that if you didn't go and redo, if your routers had that firmware on it at some point in time, if you went and didn't redo those configs, the exploit would still work even though you updated it to the latest version.
Interesting. All right.
I found that out the hard way. But
well, it's the school of hard knocks is what we're at.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I think we definitely talked about a bunch of stuff, and we're at hour and 45 minutes, and I asked only for an hour and a half of your time. Um, so, was there anything that you were that you saw in the last week that of particular note?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Just a quick little deal. The Tom Smith, who's been on this show a few times, he did a BGP tutorial for BSD at BSDCan. So that will be in the show notes as well, and I'll post a link to that because that was a really cool, and it's completely free. So if you're looking at trying to do open source your network, or looking at different options.
Is this the free rtr.org thing?
No, I think that's a different Tom runs straight BSD for his network, is my understanding. And then he throws there's a BGP. I haven't watched so I'm probably terrible, but I just want to throw that out there because that was an announcement he made in the group. But my understanding is there's a application you can run so that it'll load the routes into the BSD it's basically the same thing as what Linux is and what Mikrotik and most of the X86 based routers that we interact with is. There is effectively an operational router in your computer. It just doesn't have forwarding enabled. And once you enable the forwarding, you can turn it into a router. Windows also, I believe, has the same capability. Yeah, that would be, if somebody's ever run a Windows computer as a router, please get a hold of me. I want to hear that story. You have?
Yes. So
you did.
Yeah. So when I started with Trinity Medical Group, the late 80s, early 90s, they had a server's NT DOS 4.6, and that was their router, DHCP server, DNS server, everything for the entire hospital.
Okay, and like that was like, well, did they have Active Directory back then?
They did, but it basically all it did was sync usernames and passwords. There wasn't any policies or anything like that back then, but you would create the users on that server, and then you would log in as an NT user. I mean, it's still in Windows today.
Yeah.
Similar protocol, just spiced up and more features. But yeah, Windows Server can do
I see that,
and everything. Not that you should, for sure. But
come on, John. Why do you got to be such a Debbie Downer here? No. Oh my goodness. Running that would be like, that would be one of those like you set that up and you're never, like, the Windows firewall. Actually, it's not terrible, but I would feel really sorry for the guy who has to administrate that. So
I killed it. So nope. Why I was interesting of that BSD router is I'm actually a big BSD fan. Like, it was a few years ago, I realized all of the routers, not routers, but all the servers, some of them were routers that I would forget about for years at a time. And then when I see like exploit or 0 day come out for it, and they're like, hey, you should, I'm like, wait, do I have some of those? And go through, I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't touched this thing in a couple of years, and I'll see if this blows up when I update it. And run PKG update, and everything just updates, reboots, and works fine. I'm like, maybe I should look more into this and run more things on BSD, because I have 0 Windows. Our company is 0 Microsoft, except for client managed devices. But we're running Linux, like my actual workstation over here, that's running Ghost BSD.
Okay.
I'm running a MacBook basically just because when I was looking for the specs that I wanted, Apple was the budget option, which
That never happens.
yeah, I wanted the i9 60, like 32, 64 gigs of RAM, decent GPU. Went through System 76, Razer, Alienware, everything was about $7,000 to $8,000. Apple was 4,800. Like, I hate giving Apple my money, but
well, yeah, at that much
Windows.
difference.
That was my biggest thing. I didn't want Windows.
Yep.
And it served me fine. It's 3 years now, and I've made well more than I paid for it in jobs. So.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, definitely. No, I'm actually going to be going into that market now too. Unfortunately, my laptop, I'm a Lenovo guy, but I always throw way too many different things onto it, and so the keyboard is bulging because the battery is starting to separate because I've just left the bloody. I shouldn't buy a laptop anymore because I never use it for actual laptop stuff. It's been plugged in its entire life, and yeah, it was a terrible choice. But it's like, I still want this like mobility. No, just
and you never use the mobility.
Never use the mobility.
I hope you can see this.
Yeah. Oh, nice, pretty colors.
I built that one.
Yeah, that's my next one. Is I just have to build it. So,
but I'm one of those guys. Like, if I'm mobile and working, I can use a laptop. But if I want to be productive at my workstation, I need a workstation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's just because I'm old, but I don't know.
Well, and my biggest complaint is I'm not seeing multiple monitors there.
Oh no. Well, I have 4.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice those. Okay, so so all of those are all tied together.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I can only see 3 and 4. Okay. Oh, so how do you be productive? That's not even at the same desk.
So the actual OS on this one is XCPMG, and then I have 2 graphics cards in it. So I've
okay,
on one VM that goes to these set of monitors, and then our content creator, he's over on this side, so he has a Windows virtual machine with its own.
No, you have to have multiple monitors that you're using, cheater.
Well, yeah, that's 2 for me and 2 for him.
Whatever. All right. All right. Well, that was the last notable thing that I wanted to bring up. There are a couple other things, but I'm not gonna eat up your time too terribly much more. And we've definitely hitting sticking a fork in it time. So John, if people wanted to get a hold of you on the internet, how should they go about doing that?
You can go to geekytech.com. Our number's there, but our number being my wife's number, then she'll get a hold of me. Or you can just send me a direct email, which is just Jon, Jon, at geekytech.com, or Jon@geek5voip.com, or Jon@geek5wifi.com.
You have a few different websites. As always for me, so I am now running Brothers WISP, so you can go ahead and shoot us an email at thebrotherswisp@gmail.com. You can get a hold of me there. You can get a hold of me at my website, lostcreek.tech, or you can shoot
that name.
Lost Creek. So fun fact, the most common name for creeks in the United States is Lost Creek, or at least is what I found out after looking up, hey, where is Lost Creek? it's all over the place in the United States. But between me and a buddy, there's a mostly dry, empty creek that goes between where our two houses. And because we were going to be doing cameras together, we're like, wow, hey, we got to have something. So it's Lost Creek. So yeah, out in the middle of nowhere, camera stuff. Yep, that's the story for that. And then and now I just do consulting with the website, and I need to update the BGP, the Brother WISP V7, because I was talking to somebody recently, and the config that I have that was working is no longer works anymore. So I will be updating that. Or you can shoot me an email and complain about the exact issues with my website. That HTTP doesn't work, that all sorts of other stuff about it. HTTPS works, but you can shoot me an email at tommy@lostcreek.tech. That's where you can get a hold of me. You can also find me at the Brothers WISP in our Patreon Slack. I am always trolling there, and if not contributing beneficially, at least reading, looking, and interacting. There's I'm also Tommy on the Mimosa forums. That's my new handle because my old company, William 5 there is the property of my old company, and I don't work for them anymore. So be more than happy to help you with your Mimosa questions there. And I'm on there. I'm on a bunch of the Facebook groups where I try to be as inflammatory as I possibly can be at times.
Your website is really messed up. I just
Yeah,
now looked
yeah.
at it.
Yeah, it's a WordPress site, and I am terrible at WordPress management. I will forever be. Yeah, it's a place for me to throw, hey, these are where my notes are that I can reference to people to when they need something in particular. It's not supposed to encourage you to pay me money for anything. Don't do that. It's a very poor choice on anyone's part. So as it was, all right, hope you guys have a wonderful week. Take care, have a wonderful, and we'll catch you next time.
Cool. See ya.
Yep. And then stopping over here. Oh, you left me.